The views expressed in this program do not necessarily reflect those of this station. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome to Insights into Northeast Michigan, a WBKB News public affairs program. Insights deals with the issues affecting those in the community, as well as Northeast Michigan and the state. And now, Insights into Northeast Michigan.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Welcome to Insights. I'm here this morning with Tony Valet from the Coast Guard here in Alpena, and we'll be talking a little bit about boat safety, especially for the summer here in Alpena. So thank you so much for joining us. Welcome, Tony.
Yep, you're perfectly welcome. I'm with the Coast Guard Auxiliary. I'm the volunteer unit of the Coast Guard. I'm not a regular Coast Guard person.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, so first I want to start off by talking a little bit about our area, and tell me how you advise people to go out on the water. Do you advise them to go out with a plan when they're going out on a boat?
Well, yes. First, make sure you got all the right safety equipment on board. You got the life jackets, the necessary equipment for the boat, fire extinguishers, the lights are working, the boat is safe to go out in, no leaks or problems. And then if you're going out, especially in Lake Huron, and you're going for any length of time, we suggest a float plan, and we encourage that to tell a neighbor or friend where you're going, when you're due back, and who's going to be with you in case something happens and you don't come back at the required time. We have some idea where to start looking.
Right, and so the float plan obviously has a lot of different components to it, I'm guessing?
It's basically where you're going, where you're coming back, how long you'll be out, how many people are going to be, and it's fairly simple, but that's, they want to know the area where you're going to be boating at. Mm-hmm. Obviously, if you're going to be out on Hubbard Lake, the chances of, you're contained. If you go out in Lake Huron and you break down, you could be going anywhere.
Mm-hmm. And so tell me a little bit about what you have seen in the Coast Guard Auxiliary here with the weather here in Alpena. Our weather can be very iffy sometimes, so out on Lake Huron sometimes it gets pretty choppy.
Exactly. Lake Huron can be docile at times, and then all of a sudden a big storm, especially in summer, come up and blow up big waves, and people go out there with a smaller boat and some they're in trouble. So always check the weather ahead of time. Keep an eye on the sky. If it looks like something serious coming in, just pull up usually it's fishermen, pull up your lines, or if you're boating, just head for shore somewhere and get protected. But watch the weather at all times. And also dress for the water. Don't dress for the weather. You may be at the cottage and you're going to go out Lake Huron and it's 80 degrees. Lake Huron average is about 50, 55 at the most. So it could be a lot chillier out there. So make sure you have warm clothes, because that's the first thing people do, get hypothermic and they start getting chilled.
Mm-hmm. And what are some signs of that?
Hypothermia, the first sign is the shaking, the little jittery, like you feel, the jitters, the shaking. That's the first sign. And then as it gets worse, your cognitive functions start breaking down. You don't think right. And then you could actually, if you keep at it, keep getting worse and worse, you can pass out.
Mm-hmm. And so the Coast Guard Auxiliary does a lot here in Alpena for boat safety. I know you guys do a lot of vessel checks, so tell me a little bit about those.
Yep, we provide the vessel safety checks. We have several vessel examiners, and all you have to do is call the station, 356-1656. Let whoever answers phone or leave a message that you want a safety check, and leave a name and number, and we'll get back with you. And then we provide, this is the form that we have. We go through all this. Required, like I say, life jackets, your registration's all in order, and you got your fire extinguishers, horn, whistle, everything that's required on the boat. And if you pass, we give you the sticker, and it goes on the left or port side of the vessel, and it shows that you've passed this for the year. And then it's a good record to have. And it also lists a bunch of other things you don't need but are helpful, like a marine radio. We really recommend a marine radio. People say, well, I got a cell phone. Well, you don't always have coverage out on Lake Huron. Whereas a marine radio, channel 16, is always monitored by the Coast Guard. If there's any problems, they'll hear you with the new Rescue 21 radio system. They can pick you up anywhere on Lake Huron now, and if you need help, just stay on Channel 16 and call for help.
Yeah, absolutely, because service can definitely be iffy with that weather out there too.
Exactly.
So that's a good idea.
So that's, if you need help, that's Channel 16 on VHF Marine Radio. And we suggest several other things like, you know, have charts for the area. Lake Huron can be tricky with rocks everywhere, and have an anchor in case something happens. You can anchor out maybe instead of floating away.
Right, and why do you think it's so important to keep up with these vessel checks in the area? Some people might not be doing them on their own if you guys hadn't provided them. So why do you keep up this exercise?
Because every year, we give it every year, and stuff, you know, things on boats may break. And we had someone come by and he thought his navigation lights were working. They weren't working. He goes, they were working last year. Well, see, they can check it and get it done, and now they can go out and be safe, because you need those navigation lights when it gets dark, so other boaters see you. And then flares. Everybody who goes out on the Great Lakes, federal waters, need visual distress signals or flares, and they expire. And a lot of times they'll get the check and their flares are expired. It says, nope, you got to go get some new ones. So every year it helps to go over the equipment in the boat. They know it's safe. They know where it is. Life jackets are in good shape and they're ready to be used. So that's why I think it's necessary, and we provide the service.
Yes.
Every year we can check your boat.
And we're very appreciative of that as a community.
Thank you.
And so speaking of everything that you need to have on a boat, we have some life jackets here.
Yep.
So if you wouldn't mind explaining a little bit of that to us.
Well, this is the old Saab. Probably everybody has one of these on their pontoon boat or something, but we make sure you have a whistle or something, especially at night. If you fall in the water, it's tough to see you. If you have a whistle, you can blow that. But a lot of people object to these because it is kind of big and bulky, but they do work and they keep your head up. And this is the style for this type of life jacket on a smaller version for a child, under 6. They need this to keep their head up. This is the kind they need to use, but a smaller one. This is like a child's version they used to allow. This would be for someone over 6.
Okay.
6 and over. But this doesn't keep your head up.
Right.
And then several years ago, the Coast Guard started approving what we call inflatables. It just goes over your neck like a collar, like a horse collar. And it can either be pulled inflated or have a self-inflator. And these are much more comfortable to wear. They're a little more money, but they're well worth it because people will wear these.
Yeah.
We always want people to wear them, but they don't have to wear them, but we recommend it. But they have to have one for everybody on board, and it has to be serviceable.
Oh, great. And how many of these life jackets do you advise people have on board?
They have to have one for everyone on board, everybody who has one. And if your vessel is over 16 foot, you need one of these. It's a cushion, people sit on them, but it's also a throwable device. Someone goes in the water, you can throw it to them and they can grab and float. So if you've got a vessel 16 foot and over, you need one of these too. Plus this life jacket for everyone on board, child, adult, teenagers, everybody.
And people on jet skis always need to be wearing life jackets,
Yep,
correct?
if you're operating a jet ski, you have to wear your life jacket at all times.
All right, great.
And jet skis are not allowed to operate after sunset.
Okay, well, thank you so much for all the information, Tony.
Okay.
We really appreciate it and everything that you guys do.
Exactly. And if they need any help, again, information, call that number, the station, and we'll get back with them.
All right, great. Thanks again, Tony.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us. And coming up next, we will have Phil Hartmeyer from the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary talking more about boat safety. Welcome back to Insights, everyone. I'm Lindsay DeLucia, and I'm here with Phil Hartmeyer from the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary, who is a maritime archaeologist there. So welcome, Phil. Thanks so much for joining us.
Sure.
All right. So what I want to get into first with you is pretty much your experience, your personal experience, and what you've taken from your job out on Lake Huron with boat safety.
Yeah, I'm actually born and raised in California, so my first experience out on the big lakes was in 2011 when I moved here to Alpena. So there was definitely a transition of, of not just safety equipment and different things that we need to pay attention to on the Great Lakes, but diving experience specifically. Diving requires a whole lot different, plan to go out on the water than does other water sports. So keeping all that stuff in mind. The Great Lakes are a very volatile place. They're not as as flat calm as some people like to think they are on the inland lakes. So it's a whole different animal, and summer squalls can pop up in the matter of seconds. So totally dynamic environment, and it's best to be prepared.
Absolutely. So yeah, tell me a little bit more about safety while diving.
So with diving, obviously you've got basically two sets of gear where you've got diving equipment, emergency O2. You've got extra, save a dive kit for spare parts if any of your equipment malfunctions, needs to be repaired on the spot. But then you've also got the boating side of it. So a lot of people are divers but not boaters. Some people are boaters who are facilitating dive operations, but they're not divers themselves. So there's definitely a happy medium where divers need to know how to operate vessels, how to operate the dive boat that they're on. Specifically private vessels, in case something goes wrong, that everybody is on board, knows how to assist in any kind of emergency situation with a boat or a diving accident.
Absolutely. And so tell me a little bit about how it's different. You mentioned, between the ocean and the lake, but tell me, around our area, there's a lot of small lakes that people go out on, so tell me the differences between going out on Lake Huron and the smaller lakes around here.
Absolutely. That was a really interesting part for me to learn coming here, as the smaller lake culture, whereas I'm just flocking to the big lake and going after all these shipwrecks in our area. But they are just night and day, and it really takes extra precautions when you go out on the big lake, just because there's so many fewer people on the big lake. There's many fewer first responders, if you can think of it that way. So if you're in trouble, it's really important to have everything absolutely set in its place. And not to rush around, because it really, once you're out on the big lake, you're out there, and weather can change, in the drop of a hat. So being prepared for all situations, and making sure doing an extra couple minute safety check at the dock before you go is advisable for all the big lake operations.
Right, so about that safety check, tell me some things that you would put on a checklist for boaters going out on the water. Absolutely.
Checklists seem monotonous to a lot of folks, myself included, years back, and then I started making one, and I tell you, I can't live without it. Even experienced boaters and veteran boaters, it's totally advisable, because you start to get complacent in certain ways and start to overlook certain things. Oh yeah, that safety kit hasn't changed, or yeah, my flares are up to date. For me, the checklist starts at home or at work, going through the trailer, everything to get the boat to the launch. Hubs are greased, tires are properly inflated, everything is looking good with the trailer. It's hooked up right, safety chains are in place, lights are working. Going into the boat and getting everything on the boat ready as you can to trailer to the boat to make a smooth launch operation and get on the water. So I'd advise putting anything that's really specific to you on a checklist. Checklists don't have to all be the same. There isn't one checklist that rules them all. For us, for diving, for example, with the sanctuary, there's a whole different set of things that we got to make sure that we have, safety equipment for dive operations and stuff like that. So whatever you're doing out on the water, if there's gear that's respective to that discipline, whether it's water sports, fishing, diving, make sure you have a little reminder on a checklist for that specific sport.
Definitely, and it's a must for people going out on the boats. And what should they be looking for out in the water when they have their checklist set and they're heading out? They're out in the water. What should they be looking out for?
Well, just keep your mind. Just keep your mind on a swivel. Once you're out on the water, doesn't mean everything's safe. Just start to develop little sort of muscle memory reactions to checking this, checking voltage, checking oil pressure. Making sure everything sounds right. If something feels wrong, most of the time it is, and so being able to predict some of those measures and be able to keep just a very good understanding of how your boat's operating is of critical importance.
And a lot of that, I feel, is common sense, and you don't really even need to have these courses, though you do need to have them out on the boat. But how do you feel, common sense and Sea Smarts is incorporated in when they're going out on the boat?
Absolutely, Lindsay. And anybody can buy a boat. That's just how it goes. But it takes knowledge, experience, practice to be a captain. And that's the biggest difference that we see out on the lake. Is if you're a boat owner, you really have to make a concerted effort to not only learn the rules of the road. I mean, that's a whole other topic. But to learn how boats work and you don't have to be a mechanic, but you have to know how to fix small things. So that's of critical importance as well. So being able to understand it, be able to fix it, calm, collected, be able to be in control, is a big part of owning a boat.
Right, and if someone does find themselves in an emergency out on the water, obviously, you don't want to set into panic mode, but what should the first thing that they do be?
Right, stay calm, stay collected. Channel 16 is always out there. I encourage everybody to get a marine radio. I couldn't see myself living without one, for work, for business, for pleasure. Channel 16 is awesome, keeping a cell phone, and having, just a clear mind, be able to dissect the problem, get people in their place, tell everybody to have a station where they're going to be while you sort out the problem, and direct people, direct traffic as necessary. But being able to have control and keep yourself stable is important to solving the problem.
Absolutely. And how have you used all of these tips and checklists and everything in your job, really, in your everyday work?
Yeah, with our big research vessel, RV Storm, with our smaller boat, our 25-foot Boston Whaler, it's pretty rigid. We have a strict set of guidelines that we operate under, not just going out on the water, but safety, maintenance is a really detailed list of things that we have to do, and constantly keeping ourselves in check. The complacency is one of the most dangerous things on the water, whether it's diving, whether it's boating, or other things. You have to be able to keep fresh, and constantly be challenging yourself to know every single piece of your boat, constantly doing maintenance and checking up on things as it sees fit.
And it's 4th of July weekend coming up. This weekend actually is 4th of July weekend, and a lot of people are out on the water. So what kind of specifics do you have for them? There's a lot going on. Specifics for them this weekend and in the future in the summer months.
Absolutely. July 4th was great, and just encourage everybody to slow down. When we go to boat launch ramps and we see folks rushing around, there's people on trailers waiting to drop their boats in, and you're sitting there scrambling. Slow down. Like it's your right to be there at that launch space at that very time. So just take an extra minute, make sure you've got your lines in place, make sure all your gear is stowed, make sure your passengers are briefed, not only on the mission, but for how to operate your boat in case something should happen off the trailer. That's super important. So slow down, take it easy. Everybody wants to get on the water, but it's no fun when people don't have a safe journey out. So relax.
Right, and obviously the area attracts a lot of tourists for the lake itself, so people renting boats might not have all of these this knowledge in check. So what do you suggest to tourists, or even is there anything that they could do and come to the Thunder Bay National Marine Sanctuary and learn? Absolutely.
I'd encourage everybody to come to the sanctuary just to check it out. The sanctuary is based on the maritime heritage of the area. So while we're not enforcers, of boat safety or a resource for boat safety in itself, we're on the water just about every day of the week. So we know what it takes personally from a business standpoint. But nonetheless, it's a great resource to come out, check it out. When you guys are out on the water, if you guys haven't checked out any of these shipwrecks, we've got 32 buoys in Thunder Bay. Awesome shipwrecks, and they're not all deep, dark, and scary. Just grab a snorkel, grab a mask from the local dive shop, get out there, see some of the shipwrecks. It's one of the most incredible things out here in Michigan. So. All right, great. Well, thanks so much, Phil, for joining us. We really appreciate all of the information. And coming up next after the break, we'll be talking with Aaron Riopel, who is the owner of Adventureland Water Sports. So stay tuned. Hi everyone, welcome back to Insights, where this week we're talking about boat safety, and I'm here with Aaron Riopel at Duck Park. Aaron is the owner of Adventureland Sports, so welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Not a problem.
So Aaron, first I just want to start off by asking you kind of how you warn whoever's renting your kayaks about safety and what you tell them as they go out on the water.
Usually I ask them if they've kayaked before or not. Usually the people who have kayaked before have a good idea of what they need to be doing once they get in the kayak and when they're launching as well. The people that are new to the sport, I inform them about keeping themselves straight up in the kayak. They can wear their life jacket. Sometimes they don't feel comfortable wearing their life jacket, but usually you should wear your life jacket. And then just making sure that they stay straight up in the kayak, no leaning forward or side to side for shells or animals or anything like that. And one thing of safety around here is the swans. They can get aggressive, so just giving them their space and appreciating the fact that they have little ones as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, life jackets are pretty much necessary for a kayak. Anything else in the kayak that, important for them to know how to operate it with the paddles?
There's not too much involved in that. As with a boat you have the motors and you have switches and all that good stuff. Kayaks are self-propelled by you, so you're the motor. The paddle really, it's quite self-explanatory. There's nothing extra to it. It's quite simple. And once again, there's nothing that holds you into the kayak. You just sit, so it's easily to get out if you were to flip or not.
And could you show us the proper way to wear a life jacket in the kayak?
Sure, I can try. Might hit the mic. Okay. So these type are very simple, inexpensive ones that you can get. They go over your head so that the straps are on the outside. And then you wrap around your chest. Clips in, and you tighten, just like that.
Great. And so when you have a boater who's in one of your kayaks out on the water, say a state of emergency happens, storm, our weather could be pretty iffy here in Alpena. So say a storm comes through, what do you suggest to your kayakers then?
Usually I keep an eye on the weather each day to see whether or not I'm going to have issues with that. I let the kayakers know that there's possibility of rain or storms, and since it's a kind of a smaller area, I usually tell people to start heading back towards the launch. If they do get into a predicament where they're still stuck out there and it becomes an emergency, majority of them have their cell phone on them, and then they can call me and I'll inform the necessary people, whether it be me come to find them or eventually the Coast Guard coming to find them.
Mm-hmm. Great. And kayaking is very different than other forms of boating or even diving. So tell me a little bit about common sense out on the water or safety in kayaks as compared to these other options.
Kayaking in an area like this, since it's a little bit shallower, it's a little less current and less waves, of course, it's going to be a little bit easier to get around and maneuver through things. Kayaking out in the big water is a whole different story. You have to compete with the waves, you have to compete with sometimes undertow if you happen to fall out. It's a different situation when you're here compared to the big water. Some things with the big water that are different from just being on the river is you want to have a whistle with you. You can also equip your kayak with lights, just like a big boat. And it's nice to have a radio that either listens to the weather or that you can connect to the Coast Guard in case something does happen. Paddling around here, you really don't need that as much. It's a lot easier to get to shore faster and to find help if you need it. Mm-hmm. So.
And as we are in the summer months, this weekend, 4th of July weekend, and all of the weekends to come, what should boaters, especially in kayaks, expect out on this type of water or out in the lake?
Well, there's going to be more people, usually. Something in this general area is the wind. Mm-hmm. It can push you into certain areas if you're not being careful. Swans, of course. Right. If they have little ones with you, they will come after you. Yeah. It's a fact. And just being aware that there are other people around. There will be fishermen around here as well. Mm-hmm. So they'll have their motorboats, and you have to watch out for their fishing lines and everything like that. Right. Just more people on the holiday weekends.
Right, and going off of that, I mean, a lot to do with safety is recognizing other people around you. So what do you say to your kayakers, or kind of how to be cooperative with others out on the water?
Usually if I tell them to, be aware, look around, don't be afraid to turn your head. Just if you happen to be coming up on somebody and it's a tighter space, say hi, let them know that you're there. If you have the whistle and it's easier, just toot the whistle really quick just so they know that you're around. Sometimes if I'm paddling, I see a fisherman, I like to say, are you casting out? Is there lines I'm going to run into? That kind of thing. Just be vocal and let people know that you're around.
Right, and being courteous to others who are sharing the water with you.
Yeah.
So any other words of wisdom for boat safety in any terms, not only kayak, but any other ways of getting out on the water that you would like to tell viewers?
Oh man, getting out on the water can be a lot of fun if you do have the proper equipment, the life jacket, the paddle, and the big boats having, enough gas. You have a motor and that kind of thing. But just be aware that there are going to be other people around. You're not the only one in the water. Yep. Be respectful of animals, that kind of thing. It's not too many issues related to kayaking as there would be to boats and motors and possibly running into a propeller and that kind of thing.
So yeah, a lot on boat safety. Be prepared be aware and be courteous to others.
Watch the weather.
Yes, another big one, especially here. All right, well, thanks so much, Erin, for joining us. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And we hope that you have taken in all of tips of boat safety that we've shared with you on this Insights. Thanks so much for joining us.
Insights into Northeast Michigan is produced by WBKB News. If you have any comments, suggestions, or topics you would like to see on a future show, please email WBKB News. This has been a production of Thunder Bay Broadcasting Corporation. All rights reserved.
The furniture and set design for this episode of Insights is provided by Young Appliance Art Van Furniture on US 23 South, Alpena.